It has been said that average people want you to stay average. Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast, the podcast designed to challenge you to break the mold that average has on the world. Each episode offers insights directly from those who choose to break average every day. Now, for the latest insights, here are your hosts, Paul Gustafson and Mike Harbour.
Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast. My name is Paul Gustafson, and joining me is Mike Harbour, and this is episode number 32. Mike, what do you think, man?
Man, I'm excited to be here, Paul. I know you've been on a trip recently. I'm looking forward to talk about that a little bit. We're jumping into the kind of the next series. We've got a new special guest today, so lots going on in this episode. I'm doing great.
Yeah, we've got a packed episode. We are so excited to be able to just dive in on this topic, and we're exploring the resilience factor. We started last week, and the first part, this is the part 2, which I'm super excited about. And you just mentioned that we've got some in-studio guests. Of course, Rick, who's our producer, he's here as well. Rick, how you doing, man?
All right, man, let's go. Ready to do this.
Ready to go. And I want to introduce a dear friend to all of us, and she's a contributing author to the book, Breaking Average, and it's Trudy Menke. Hey, Trudy, how are you?
Hey, good morning. It's good to see you guys.
Great to have you. Super excited to have you join us and creating balance in the force, because you'll see that these guys, Arkansas, Tennessee, we need you. We need you. So good to have you here. So, Mike, tell us a little bit more about what we're going to be hitting on this resilience factor.
Yeah, man, we've been for several weeks now talking about breaking average, right? Breaking average. Paul's book, 7 Critical Factors to Team Strong Leadership. Last episode, we dove into the topic resilience. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into a couple of those elements. I love this topic, Paul, because it's one that I have a lot of experience in, resilience. I feel like I can talk a lot about it. And, I know before Rick gets on here, and really gives me a hard time, he and I talk a lot about SEC sports, and I'm a Razorback fan. You have to be resilient to be a Razorback fan because, it's not often we win. We're often at the bottom. Thank God for Mississippi, because usually Ole Miss and Mississippi State is worse than us in most things, to include education and all of those things that go. I don't even know if they have school in Mississippi, but they do have sports. And I know I just made somebody mad that's listening to this podcast, like I always do, right? Like I always do. But I'm resilient, Paul, and I'm excited to talk about this topic today.
Yeah, this is such a good one. Truthfully, we've been talking about resilience since day one, since really when we met each other. I've known Trudy. Trudy, I think I've known you since 2013. When did you join the John Maxwell team? I'm trying to remember when that was.
I was a founding member. I remember meeting Mike then. And
okay. Yeah. Yes. So back in 2011, we did this. We started 10 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years. And this has kind of been a topic of our discussions, whether we're at IMC and obviously with this book that we did together is on resilience. And, we met Rick along this journey along the way. And Rick, it was about resilience. When we think about it, we're always talking about this type of topic, about perseverance, really, which is our focus. And so I'm excited about this. Mike, I'd like to share a little bit of story to kind of set the table, if I could. You ready for another little storytelling time?
Yeah. I think that's a great way to get us started in this. And all of us, I'm sure, will have our own stories of resilience, because that's what it's all. We're all entrepreneurs. Yeah. And so if you've survived as an entrepreneur, especially the last 12 months, right? What we've been through, 14 months with COVID. If you've survived that, there's certainly stories of resilience that we can all share, Paul. But why don't you share one from the book that you've written about, or from your own personal life?
Well, you make a key point here. I think we all have stories of resilience. What Mike just said is absolutely true. And I'd invite everybody to think about, what is your story of resilience? And it's almost a tip and challenge on the front end. But the one that I really really hit me, that was pretty powerful, about a year or two ago, I can't remember when it was exactly, I watched a movie called Harriet. Have you guys seen that movie, Harriet?
I have not.
It's out there probably on Netflix or whatever streaming app that you can get your hands on. See if you can find it. Maybe it's on Amazon Prime, and it's about Harriet Tubman. It's a fantastic story. It's really well done. And it's the story of the heroic abolitionist Harriet Tubman. And I can't remember what year it was, but she escaped from slavery from the state of Maryland, actually, and then headed up north through Pennsylvania. The story itself, in terms of how she got into that position of just wanting to leave, her dad was free, her mom was not. And so her dad fought for the freedom of the family, didn't quite get it for the whole family initially, but Harriet was able to make a run for it and got up to Philadelphia and basically found a safe place to be. She ended up eventually in Canada, but came back, and she was really the leader, the conductor, as they say, of the Underground Railroad. And it's a fantastic story. They say that at least she freed at least 70 slave people, and some say it's probably more because that was individually she led 70 people. There was other folks that she worked with to kind of free some folks. It's just a fantastic. She's one of America's greatest heroes when you think about it, and just her story, really, her health issues that she had. She was hit on the head early on and had essentially a brain injury. But despite the limitations that she had, she found a way to persevere. She found a way to get herself free. And then she went back and she freed others, including her mom and dad, which is pretty phenomenal. And there's some great quotes from her, but one of them that I like is she claimed, "I never ran my train off the track and I never lost a passenger." And that's pretty phenomenal when you think about it, right? It's pretty phenomenal that she led all those folks, never ran the train off the track, or never lost a passenger, and pretty phenomenal. So I like that story. The Harriet story really is one that really impacts me for perseverance.
Yeah, I love that story, Paul. It reminds us all of how hard, things can be in life, right? One of our mentors is, told us all that anything worthwhile is uphill. And certainly that challenge that Harriet Tubman faced was an uphill challenge. I'm sure lots of obstacles, lots of fear, the risk of your own life and the life of others, but certainly a story of perseverance and resilience for sure.
Yeah. So Rick, kind of recap a little bit, because we started on this conversation of resilience last week. So unpack for everybody the three elements and where we're going with this, if you could.
Absolutely. So the resilience factor we're really going to be talking about perseverance today, as you said, but it's acknowledge the threats, persevere through the middle, and overcome in the end. Whenever I think about perseverance, Nelson Mandela comes to mind, right? Again, we could share so many stories, but he has a great quote too. It says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And in my line of work and in all of us, right? Everything, if you really look back, it could seem impossible. You shared the story of some inventions on the last podcast, and as you look past, and we shared some stuff during that podcast too. We've all been in business 15 or so more years as entrepreneurs, and if you look back at that and go, "Wow," right? It doesn't feel like that sometimes. So when you look back at that, that is just a study session on perseverance. It's a whatever it takes attitude. It's about small wins every day to the bigger wins, right? Once a month or once a quarter, once a year. And the big thing is that, and you say it in the book, Paul, is that perseverance doesn't quit.
Yeah, it really doesn't. We got to keep going. Just somebody showed me a picture the other day of a man he's mining away, and he's almost at the diamonds. He's almost there, but he can't tell that he's almost there, and he gives up and he goes home, and he's defeated. He's down. Then there's another picture, same guy, but this time he broke through. And then when you see him walking back, he's bringing back all the diamonds, all the bling, and really the impact that he made. And it's just that one extra step sometimes that we need to go through to kind of break through, and that's what perseverance is all about. So Trudy, kind of hone in on this a little bit more for us. We're so excited to have you here again. Thank you for being part of our dialogue. But tell us a little bit of this element of perseverance.
Yeah, I think what we are looking at in perseverance in the formula or the template, that you put together in the Breaking Average material, it's really more about mindset, where I feel like overcoming is more about the thing that you needed to overcome, but perseverance is the mindset, that take whatever it takes kind of attitude. And I don't think you jump in to a battle or a journey without the intention of being there for the whole thing, right? So
Yeah.
it starts with that mindset of perseverance. And I think it's the responsibility, as you've kind of really well laid it out. You want to have all the contributors on the team have that skill of perseverance that they're bringing to the team. So it's something we have to be individually responsible for before we can require it, I guess, of the team, or before we see the benefit of it in the team. We have to require it from each individual.
Yeah, I mean, really, we need to create that expectation. I love that thought. And, guys, remember a couple of years ago, the Nats came back from like the worst record in baseball and came back and won the World Series.
Absolutely.
That was a great story, perseverance in itself, which I think we unpacked on one podcast, but I just want to remind you that.
Well, I live up here in Indiana, so, to me, it's always the Cubs.
Yeah.
The Cubs story of perseverance.
Yeah, the Cubs, they did.
Yeah,
it.
100 and some odd years, right? However long it was, I can't remember.
16, I believe.
116, yeah, something like that.
That's just amazing.
Oh, no, I mean 2016, like I'm remembering when, so.
Yeah, it was like 108 year wait, but they kept persevered that year.
But what Dr. Brene Brown, she's the one that called it the messy middle, right? I think you mentioned that before in her book, Rising Strong, and that concept of the messy middle. I'm sure the Cubs didn't think it was going to be a 108-year messy middle, but luckily for us, like Rick said, hopefully the messy middle comes once a month or once a quarter, and we get those highs along the way.
Yeah.
Persevere to the next one.
Yeah, so many great stories of perseverance. And we just want to invite everybody to kind of go to our website, share with us what are some stories of perseverance that come to mind for you. We've shared the Cubs, the Nationals, Harriet Tubman. There's so many examples. Trudy, who's our sponsor for today? Can you share with everybody who our sponsor is for today?
That's right. Our sponsor today is Cultivate Courage. And Cultivate Courage is all about facing your fears, fulfilling your dreams. Speaker, coach, author, and trainer Dave Cornell helps people overcome fear and cultivate courage so they can live a more productive, passionate, engaged life. And you can learn more by visiting www.cultivatecourage.com.
All right. I just had a chance to spend some time with Dave. He's a fantastic guy. He definitely knows something about perseverance and helping people step forward in their fear and really be courageous. So that's cool. Guys, let's dive in a little deeper on this topic. This is so important. And again, we're thankful for Dave being our featured sponsor today. Fantastic. But let's talk about what this resilience factor really is, what perseverance really means. Let's kind of unwrap this a little bit more, because right now it's just this box that's staring at us. We know it's called perseverance. We talked about the messy middle, but why is this important? And Rick, tell us a little bit about that. And Trudy, I want to tee you up again too, because I want to hear your thoughts on this. But what does it mean to be a person who is resilient and somebody who perseveres?
Yeah, you know what? I think we could do a whole podcast just on perseverance. I think that maybe we do a season, our next season is just perseverance stories. Because, those are the greatest movies of all time, is these perseverance, these overcoming, these things. Like almost every movie that we did in our movie thing has some sort of perseverance to it. But I'll tell you, one of the moments that it hit me very, very personally, and it comes from the gentleman who got us all together, and that's John Maxwell. But he tells a great story about how fast can he become an expert in leadership, right? And he keeps asking himself, how fast? And somebody had told him, or he read somewhere, if you do something, every day, what's that quote, Mike, where you do something every day for 30 days or something like that, or 6 months? What is that quote that he references?
You have totally lost me, Rick. I can't remember it. I don't know
it. 10,000 hours quote, right?
10,000 hours quote. Thank you, Trudy.
Yeah.
So if you do something for 10,000 hours, you become an expert. And so the point is he decided he wanted to be an expert on leadership. And so it's, how fast can I become an expert? How fast can I become an expert? And that somewhere along the line, as he began to know more about leadership, the question wasn't how fast, it switched to how far can I go? How much more can I learn? Well, being a project manager, one of the biggest things that they ask me almost daily is how fast can we do this initiative? How fast can we implement this system? How fast can we get these developers to code this piece? And I mean, you want to talk about sitting in the Maxwell team and hearing that story and just getting punched in the face with an aha moment. That was like life-changing for me, because I started to incorporate that into my sales pitch and into my philosophy. So inevitably, if I was selling a project management system, or we were doing some, building a PMO, that was the first question: how fast and how cheap? And I would start to say that you're asking me the wrong questions. You're asking me actually limiting belief questions. They're like, what are you talking about? I said, because you're never done. If you're going to implement a philosophy or a system or something like that, you're never finished. You're never done. So it's not how fast can we hit the button. It's how far can this button take you? Right. And that's and if the only answer is, how fast that you want from me, maybe I'm not the person for you. I may not be the person that's going to lead you in the right direction, because while I want to be very efficient, I want to see how far we can go. So this isn't a 3-month thing. You flip the button and you're done. And so that just translated perseverance to me, because most people want to be done. Right. Mm-hmm. Most people starting this, Mike and I are on these weight loss journeys. Right. And we've talked about how tough that can be. And when I first started, I was like, just when can I hit that weight? When can I hit that weight? And last week is when I finally hit my first milestone. And I called it a milestone because I didn't want it to be a goal. Right. Goal to me is finished. Milestone says, okay, that's a marker in your journey. Right. You want to go there. And I set a ridiculous number for myself. I mean, years ago, that I was going to hit 225. And when I finally hit it, I mean, that was a cool thing. But my first thought was, okay, what is it going to take to get to 200? Let's go. Right. Let's keep persevering and pushing through. And this morning itself, I woke up, wasn't feeling my best, had the workout scheduled, thought about canceling it, and just, you got to get through that messy middle and go. So to me, even as the weight loss journey, it's not how fast can I lose weight, it's how far can I take this and how long can I live healthy and be at an appropriate weight. So to me, again, Paul, it's probably my most long-winded rant in the podcast ever, but we can go perseverance for days.
Yeah, guys, Rick knows how to persevere. That's for sure. And this is so important. It's such a vital topic. I don't want us to lose track of it. I know many people have heard stories of perseverance, but this is a choice, right? When we choose to persevere, we can make an impact. We can get to that destination that you're talking about, right? You think about how long it takes to get to the moon back in the day. That was a story of perseverance. They did it in a decade, right? That whole story. But Trudy, I want to hear your thoughts. What does it mean for you to persevere? What are your thoughts on this?
I boiled it down real tight. I think perseverance for me is when and how, and not if. When and how. And that's going to take me to, a lot of times I try to negotiate some of these contracts and they end up in my pipeline, and there's that question of, where are they? Should I call them? Are they awaiting, some other committee's approval, or, where are we at? And I just always say, if I haven't heard no, then it's not over, they're still there. So it's when and how. It may not, I might have had it planned thinking we're going to do this. I mean, I just had this happen. Several sessions with a client that were all supposed to happen in May in different offices where they are. And they came back to me and they want to move it all to September. I'm not thrilled with that, but it was part of the journey. It's part of the journey of getting this relationship, is to now look at when and how, and not if. So I look at almost like a marathon runner, that's their mentality. When they get up at the beginning of the race, you've got hundreds and maybe thousands of people standing there waiting for the gun to go off. And they begin the race with that mindset of how and when, and not if.
I love that, because the when and the how gives you a more positive focus, whereas if you ask the if question, you're putting some doubt, like, well, if I get it, if this happens. And Mike, it kind of aligns with Chris Voss. You and I read a book called Never Split the Difference. And he uses that phrase a lot in terms of that negotiation tactic, where we don't ask the if question, we actually ask the how question. How can we do this. But Mike, what are some of your thoughts on this? This is such an important topic.
Yeah, I love talking about perseverance because I think, when we talk about team strong leadership and just leadership in general, perseverance is the greatest muscle we need to develop, right? I mean, there's a lot of skills that we need to develop, what I call essential skills, but the greatest muscle is the ability to persevere. Over my left shoulder, you see Abraham Lincoln, one of the greatest leaders of our, in the history of our country. And you talk about his story of perseverance. That's why I have this image. It talks about all his failures. But, recently there was a quote on John Maxwell's podcast, and it said, it's not the size of your failure, it's the posture after you fail, right? Because we're all going to fail, but perseverance or resilience, whatever you want to call it, that's a posture. Like, what am I going to do after I fail? Most people are like, oh my God, what if I do fail? And so they never take that step, right?
Yeah.
And I think we all have to get into that frame of mind. Okay, when I do fail, because I'm going to, but the failure is the opportunity to learn. And one of my favorite books on this was a study. It was really a research book written by Angela Duckworth. And I don't know if you've read it, but Grit. And she really talked about, she studied this idea of resilience, of perseverance, what she titled as grit. In a quote from her, she says, enthusiasm is common, endurance is rare. And how many of us have gotten excited about a new thing, right? A new podcast, a new podcast, a new book, a new weight loss program, Rick.
Yeah.
And then it gets, hard, right? It gets hard because now I've lost the 10 pounds, but I really wanted to lose 20, and somebody's offering me that, that double cheeseburger and fries, or I got to go to the gym today and I don't feel like it. So it's that endurance that is rare. And I think we all have stories of endurance in our life. I know everything that I've achieved in my life that I feel like has been significant. And there are many things I feel like I've achieved that are significant. I'll use my marriage as one of them. I've been married over 28 years, to be 29 this year. You talk about a race of endurance, right? I mean, just fighting through all of the persevering, being resilient through all the challenges that we face there, or my business. Everything that has been significant in my life has come really on the heels of when I wanted to quit. Like, I'm done. But resilience is an attitude. It's a posture that says, okay, now I'm back up and I'm moving forward. And look, as Rick said, we could do a whole podcast season on the topic of resilience and never run out of stories in our own lives, right? Just the stories in our own lives, let alone the ones that we can share from history.
Yeah, so good. Your a couple of things kind of came to my mind. First, Edison. What if Edison gave up, right? It would have taken 20 more years before the light bulb. What if the Wright brothers gave up? They all experienced failure, but they're not failures in themselves. Those are just minor setbacks that allowed them to see things that didn't work so they could discover the other things that they needed to pursue to figure out what might work. And when we do that, when we look at it, it's the mindset. Trudy said it earlier. It's about this intent. Well, let's have this intent, this mindset that we're going to be focused in on the results that we're attaining. We may not see them right away. We want those shortcuts. We try to cookie cut our way to leadership. You can't cookie cut your way to leadership. You got to work on it. You put in the work, good results happen. Takes time. So I love where we're going with this. This is such an important topic, and I just want to keep going. How do we teach and transfer this, guys? I mean, it's one thing for us individually to say, okay, I've got the mindset. I know I'm just going to stick with it. It's a muscle. I like how you said that, Mike. We're going to stick with it. But how do we ultimately transfer this to other people, our team, other leaders, those around us? How do we encourage this? So that's where I want to go next. So, Rick, what are your thoughts on this? How do we cultivate this idea of perseverance?
Yeah, I'm going to use a standard answer I use often, which is model the behavior and tell the story and inspire others. 3 years ago, again, coming out of a session with John and just getting inspired, I sat down and wrote a blog post, and I want to share that with you really quickly. It's quick. I'll read it fast, but it says, John Maxwell states it so beautifully. Everything worthwhile is uphill, yes, yet most everyone has downhill habits. In my journey through self-awareness, so many quotes kept flashing through my brain. Some of my favorites, like Carl Jung's, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Dr. Robert Rome teaching me about my ID personality and the understanding of how I start well, but I need that extra push to finish. All of these led me down to the path to envision Sisyphus. Visualization sometimes is the art of learning, and I visualize sometimes that my business and career is Sisyphus, except that it isn't starting over every day. It just rolls back downhill if you stop for a day or even for a breath. There are many moments throughout the day or week where distractions creep in. Each morning, I create a list of key things that I need to get done. That is my rock that I must get up the hill. Phone calls, emails, distractions, and the way my brain is wired is my mountain. Each time I cross something off the list, I'm pushing. Each time a distraction wins, I've stopped and that rock is pushing me back down. I can feel the struggle with my own brain and thoughts to push through. Even in writing this post, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a Sisyphus desk ornament to remind you to stay focused? And that just cost me 15 minutes of searching on the internet. And by the way, if you're watching on Empowered Living, that's what this little guy is right up here, is my little Sisyphus desk ornament. So I did get it. But back to the post and the thought. We all have this thing inside of us. This is where my quote comes from, which is, we all have the want to succeed, but do we have the will to succeed? I will finish this post. I will finish my list today. I will grow today. I will succeed. I will push this rock up that mountain. I know tomorrow it'll be there for me to push again, and I welcome it. I welcome the challenge, come what may. I hope that rock is bigger. I hope the mountain is steeper, and I hope I grow tired sooner so that I can become stronger. Let's do this. Sisyphus, you ready? And so 3 years ago, I still read this. When I read that in my seminars and presentations, and it just became this mantra for me. And we've discussed my want and will statements here before on the podcast, but when we talk about perseverance and trying to transfer it to me, it's writing things like that. It's stating things like that, and going back into your personal self of where you had to persevere and sharing that when somebody needs to hear it. I think that's how you transfer it.
Oh, I love that. That's good. Yeah, we need to have you pull down that Sisyphus thing off your shelf so everybody can see it, for those that are on the Empowered Living Show and our YouTube channel. But can you highlight that later in the production, just to for folks to see that, because it is cool. It's a good story, and I like how you said, if you change your want to will, that is powerful, Rick. What if we change our want? Because we all have wants. What if we change the want to will? I will get this done. I will be able to find a way to get this through. Because when our will is there, it creates clarity. It makes us look for those opportunities, the solutions for us to get to where we need to go. Trudy, what are your thoughts on this? Why is it important to transfer? What are some ways that we can do this? How do we cultivate perseverance in others?
I think that when we think about our contributors on a team and our leaders on a team, that most of the time our contributors are also leaders in some capacity. And what we have to recognize too is that as leaders, we were usually good contributors before we were given the chance to maybe lead. So I think it's that perseverance is something we have to funnel through all parts of our organization, from the followers to the leaders. But I think one of the strategies that I have used myself is to figure out, perseverance is always challenging. It's less challenging for me if I can really identify why I'm persevering. Not just, I'm not a person who's like, I need to climb the mountain because the mountain is there. Like, I got to have something big for it to be meaningful to me. So when I first embarked on self-employment, all those hurdles of that entrepreneurial journey, for me, it was about flexibility. Flexibility was a core value early in my life because of some family health issues, starting a family with small children. I really wanted to continue to contribute financially. I wanted to continue to grow mentally and have new experiences. And it was all really important to me. And the best way that I thought I could do it was as an entrepreneur, because it would give me all the flexibility I wanted. So that desire that I could identify, that why, fueled my perseverance. So I think if we can help people find their fuel, it'll go.
Fuel is the fire we need. Yeah. Having that why is so clear, helps us move forward. I love how you shared that. It reminds me, I remember seeing a movie called Gravity. You guys have seen that, right? With Sandra Bullock. And that's a great story of perseverance. And that's what it reminded me of when you shared that.
So
Mike,
I think that that strategy for helping people figure out what it is that's propelling them to want to be persevering is great. But also, I think as leaders, if we can have a problem-solving optimism, if we can cultivate that for people, and an honesty that says no one is alone. Because I think when we have to run up against the perseverance muscle, sometimes it feels lonely.
Yeah.
And if we can cultivate that kind of honesty on the team where people can at least say, wow, I'm really having to persevere to make this happen, it feels a little less lonely. And I think that can be part of the fuel.
Yeah, I think knowing that others are kind of helping you on that journey, on that path, working together, that's really powerful if we can reach in and do that. Mike, what are your thoughts on this? What are some ways that we can transfer this idea of perseverance? And I love Trudy's take on making sure that we're doing it as a team, but what are your thoughts?
I think this is where we separate ourselves from whether we're actually a leader or we think we're a leader, because when you're leading people and you're the leader of a team, it seems easy, right, to get other people to go along with us, because just my passion and my talent, and we've often heard talent's never enough, talent's not enough, right? We think that people leading by example, and I've shared this before in some past training, that leading by example it will not create followers, right? Because sometimes leading by example, people will watch you do it. Okay, you go do it. And then you're doing all the work. Yeah. So I think as leaders, we do have to lead by example. And when we think about this resilience, we have to lead by example as it relates to resilience. We've got to persevere. We've got to be positive. We've got to attach, as Trudy said, we have to have our own why, but we've got to attach others to that why as well. And as leaders, we have to also find out what is the why of our team, like individual team members, attach them and try to marry the why of where we're going as a team to the why of those individuals. And this is really what separates leaders from those who think they're leaders, right? To be able to do that and get people to go along. And so when we think about team strong leadership, it's connecting those two. And then also, and I think Trudy may have said this, being real transparent, right? Having that ability to, hey, I'm struggling too as a leader, and here's where I'm struggling. Mm-hmm. Being transparent, being authentic in that, and then, but not staying there, saying, hey, I'm going to try one more thing. I love the quote by Michael Jordan. He said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. I've been asked 26 times to take the game-winning shot, and I've missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. Mm-hmm. And see, that's why he's known as the greatest of all time, right? Because he was transparent in his failure. He was willing to fail, but he also inspired people with his action and his leadership and connected people to that championship drive. And he's known as, he's still got more trophies than any other NBA player. So he'll always, in my opinion, be known as the GOAT. I know Rick may want to,
Oh, I'm with you on that.
So,
yeah, I'm with you on that.
The flu game? You remember the flu game against?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Jazz? Was it the Jazz?
Not sure who it was against, but yeah, certainly remember it.
Not only that, but if you can get into a YouTube thing of where other basketball players are telling their stories of when they thought that they gotten under his skin or that kind of, I got onto one of those not too long ago, man. I was there for hours. It was phenomenal about how he would come back and persevere over whatever it was that he was doing and just make them pay for those comments.
Yeah. Yeah. And he would use those things as a why, right? I don't know if you watched what was the recent Last Dance, where he would just use like goofy things to drive him, right, to keep pushing forward and use that to prove himself, even though he was already known as one of the best. But attaching our team to those things is critical as well, to build real strong leadership and to move them forward.
Yeah, this is so good. I'm thinking about how we lead groups, how we lead teams. You guys are sharing some really powerful things. And, one of the things that I've seen done multiple times, I'm not sure it always works, but a lot of times we see a manager set a deadline, and deadlines are great. They're important. They're key. But really having that passion and the understanding what you're delivering and why it's important, while the date's important, but predetermining the length of time that it's going to take to be able to accomplish something isn't really the definition of perseverance. You know, we've got deliverables to do. We've got deadlines. I get it. Those are important. But that's not the measure of perseverance. The measure of perseverance is coming together, working hard, finding a way through, no matter what the challenges are, and delivering something that is satisfying and significant. That's the measure. Is it satisfying and significant in the end? And it's going to be tough. I found this Einstein quote just a couple of days ago that just really hit me really hard. And let's see if I can pull it up for you guys. It is so powerful. I've never heard of this before, but when I read it to myself, I thought this is powerful. He says that there are only two ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle. The other is though everything is a miracle. And I love that, right? This is Einstein. He's saying, look, every moment is a miracle. If we live our life as though every moment is a miracle, guess what? We're going to have the mindset that Trudy talked about earlier of being someone who's going to persevere. And we can certainly encourage, because we lead by influence, right? That's what leadership is. That's how we transfer and teach that to other folks, right? If we believe that every moment could be that breakthrough moment, like Edison did, like the Wright brothers did, like Elon Musk, I can't say it right, like Elon Musk has done with SpaceX, that's perseverance. Elon Musk wouldn't be where he is today if it wasn't for perseverance. And we could say the same about our lives too. We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for perseverance. So this is a powerful discussion, guys. I really like diving in on this. But we like all good things, they must kind of come to an end for this discussion. Mike, share with us who our sponsor is again, and kind of as we get closer to our tip and challenge.
Yeah, Dave Cornell. Love his story. He's a contributing author to Breaking Average and 7 Critical Factors to Team Strong Leadership, where he shares a little bit about his own story of perseverance, Paul. And I know you know him as a personal friend, but he helps leaders find courage in the face of obstacles, right? In the face of their fears, and continue to push through. You can learn more about Dave and his story at cultivatecourage.com.
Very cool. Well, guys, it's time to close out our podcast. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I want to thank again our sponsor that we just highlighted, Cultivate Courage. Thank you, Dave Cornell. Love what you do. I love how you're encouraging other folks with your message. Thank you, Rick and Trudy, for being a part of this. We want to come back to you with a final comment here in just a second. But we want to invite all our anybody who's watching or listening to visit us on our website. Go to breakingaverage.com and share with us maybe a challenge that you're going through, how we can be supporting you and encouraging you as you're trying to persevere, because we want to hear those stories too. So if you've gone through, if you know a leader who helps others persevere, let us know that as well. Just look for the link on that. But Mike, let's dive into it. Tip and challenge. What's your tip and challenge that you want to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, I love this topic. I've been waiting the whole episode. I had to persevere and be resilient when Rick was talking in this episode to get to my tip and challenge.
So nice.
Yeah, I had to throw that in. My tip, and this is what I struggle with more than anything, is quit looking for the shortcuts. Rick talked about 10,000 hours earlier in this episode. I'm like the 10-hour guy, right? Give me the one. How about the 10-minute shortcut? I want the 10-minute shortcut. Like, can I get there and figure it out in 10 minutes? But what I've learned to really be good, to really be successful, to lead my business, to lead others, there are no shortcuts. I love what Rick talked about earlier, is how far can I go? Not how fast can I get there, but how far can I go? And Rick, that's changed my perspective as well. So the tip for our listeners and our viewers on the Empowered Living Show is don't look for the shortcut. Look to be great. Look to learn. Look to go deep. Look to go far. And so that's the tip. The challenge is, and this is where I made that transition for me. I was a horrible student growing up. I mean, like I think I graduated high school because they were tired of seeing me, right? They like, let's get rid of Mike Carter. Let's pass him. And I made it through high school. I made it through college without ever reading, without really studying, just doing the Cliff Notes versions, truly a shortcut guy. But when I started my own business in 2006, I had to start getting smart, right? Learning all those things. And the challenge is I had to go study some people like Abraham Lincoln, like Vince Lombardi, like Steve Jobs, like Thomas Edison. A lot of these people, that we've all read the book Think and Grow Rich, right? And there's so many stories of perseverance and resilience in that book. But my challenge for our listeners is this: start studying history. Winston Churchill's story of bringing Great Britain through World War II and getting the whole world on his side is an unbelievable story. Paul shared a story about Harriet Tubman earlier. I recently watched the movie Hidden Figures, and the stories of resilience and perseverance in that. Study history, and it'll teach you to quit looking for the shortcuts and look for the long-term play that's going to help make you great. That's my tip and challenge, Paul.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, because every great story, guys, every great story is a story of perseverance. And it's a story of hope, too. I think there's a combination there. So when we think about perseverance and the tip and challenge, I want to encourage you guys, start with hope. Start with hope. I love how Martin Luther shared that everything that is done in the world is done by hope. And when we have that hope, what's going to give us, if we're reminded of that hope, and I've had others who've done that, had to do that for me, it's powerful. Be reminded of the hope that you have, because when you're reminded of the hope that you have, you'll keep going. Just keep going on that hope. It's so important. I came across, there's so many great songs, but there's a line of a lyric by a guy named Danny Gokey. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, but he wrote a song called Haven't Seen It Yet. And I'm not going to sing it, Rick. I know you want me to. But I'll share this one line. He says, "Don't ever lose hope. Hold on and believe. Maybe you just haven't seen it yet. Just haven't seen it yet. You're closer than you think you are. Only moments from the break of dawn." And I love that thought, because it's just a reminder that sometimes we just got to go a little bit further. Yes, we're tired. Yes, we're fatigued, but the hope is still there. Keep going. You'll find a way through. I love how we talked about earlier, making sure that you get others around you to encourage you, inspire you, because you'll inspire them too. So that's my tip and challenge. Start with hope. Always remember the hope. So Trudy, thank you again for being a part of this, and Rick, always. But Trudy, I'd love to kind of go to you. Any final comments as we close this thing out?
I was thinking about just leaning on another thought leader, Simon Sinek. And he does a great job of defining the difference between optimism and positivity. And when he does that, he does a good job of connecting it back to hope, and says that optimism is that hope that tomorrow is going to be better. And positivity can sometimes not be realistic all the time. It can kind of be superficial. So I guess, just to end on that thought of, optimism, optimistic problem solvers, back to kind of what I referenced earlier, is a good chunk of how we're going to persevere through some of the things we aren't excited about, but have to manage through.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thanks again, Trudy, for being a part of this. Rick, any final thoughts that you have?
Yeah, first, I said if you wanted to see us on the Empowered Living Show, but I don't think we've really told the audience that we have a YouTube channel out there as well. So you can see these on YouTube. Go out and check us out. So you don't have to just be part of the Empowered Living Show to see us live anymore, or see us on camera. But I wanted to tie two things that you said earlier, Paul, together. One, you were talking about the diamonds, the guy that was mining for diamonds, and then you also brought up Edison. Edison had a great quote that said, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up."
That's so good. I love it. I love these great quotes. There's some fantastic ones. Again, inviting all our audience members, whether you're watching on our YouTube channel, thank you, Rick, for highlighting that. Empowered Living, listening to your favorite, to the podcast on your favorite platform for podcasts. I prefer the Apple podcast, but there's other means, Spotify, right? There's lots of good ones. Whichever one it is, if there's a great quote that you want to share that inspires you to persevere, we'd love to hear about it. And we'll highlight you on a future episode. We want to highlight you. So go ahead and make a positive comment, tell others about us. visit us at breakingaverage.com. And again, we want to thank our sponsor, Cultivate Courage. Thank you, Dave Cornell, for sponsoring today's episode. So, Mike, why don't you close us out, man?
Hey, this has been another great episode on the Breaking Average podcast. Hey, it was great having you, Trudy, for joining us as well. You actually brought some great ideas. It's good to have those.
Don't be so surprised, Michael.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you, you on the show to up level what we talk about as well. I love the idea of hope and optimism as well. Make sure you join us again on the next episode of the Breaking Average podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Breaking Average podcast. If you loved what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe. All opinions and comments expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and do not reflect the opinions or views of any of the advertisers, producers, or platforms. This show was produced by R2 Multimedia. A special thank you to Milestone Melodies for our theme music. As you continue your day, what is one action that you can apply from this podcast to your life? Tune in for our next episode as we continue to challenge everyone to break average.